Mhm. Yeah, it's so nice for you to come talk to us about real estate investing in the UK. It's something that we've really wanted to do. I really wanted to do it. But I'm quite very familiar with other forms of investing. I mean real estate as well, but via the stock markets, basically. And yeah, so I haven't really done real estate in the UK. I've heard so many things about it. But I wanted us to have like the right guidance, the right partnership, exploring that option as a means of earning extra income, residual passive income as well. And so I've followed your work for a while, which is really, 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 really amazing. I'm like, okay, I think we'll benefit from you. Let's just bring you on board. Come share your knowledge with us, the steps, what we need to do, how we can proceed, how we can work together even to see that we really make this a success. So the floor is all yours. And yeah, we're excited to have you and to learn from you today.
Amazing, amazing. Well, thank you so much, Jenny, for having me. And hi to everybody else. I hope you're having a happy Saturday. I know it's probably like 10 a.m. Where
Yeah.
you are. Yeah, so it's 4 p.m. here. So we've had a full day, but for you, your day is just beginning. So a really good time for you to just hear some hopefully inspiring stories about the UK property market. I do want to make a disclaimer that, property is definitely something that is a global phenomena. It's if you think about sort of historically, when you think about properties, when you think about, why we invest in them in the first place, it really is based on the fact that they kind of are one of the most important commodities on planet Earth because
Yeah.
human beings need somewhere to live. And we don't have a shortage of humans on the planet. In fact, we are populating the planet even more. So when you think
True.
about the future and the future kind of predictability of property, you're thinking, well, there's going to be more people on the planet. There's going to be, less resources, and so there's only one thing it's going to do. It's going to continue to go up in value. When I think about property, I also think about the fact that, we are really, looking at a particular industry that outlives everybody. Um, all of my houses are at least like 90 years older than me. They're all 100, 120 years, some even 150 years old, and they're still standing. They've got no issues. The bricks and the mortar really stand the test of time. Really the only thing will change, more likely to change, is something like the roof. When you think about when you go on holiday, you think about why are you going on holiday? When you go to Paris, you think about the Eiffel Tower. When you go to London, you think about Big Ben. When you go to Egypt, you think about the pyramids. And you think about these things because, like, for example, if I was to go to Egypt, the only reason why I'm really going to Egypt is to see the pyramid. I'm not really going there for the sand. I'm going there to see something ancient, something
Yeah.
that has stood so long that even people don't even know who built them. It's standard. It's stood longer than anybody's recollection. And there's this constant, back and forth of, were they built by, humans? Were they built by aliens? Were they supernatural humans that could levitate the bricks? Or were they giants? So there's all this conspiracy around something that's been built before Christ was even born.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you think about property, and I think, it's an industry that's for all genders. I do feel like, and this is a disclaimer, I do feel like it is also, from my perspective and what I've gone through, I do feel like it's a very feminine industry. And I say that because women are kind of like the ruler of the household type thing. So I do feel like it's a real strong industry for women. It also provides like security. And I think for a woman, and for me anyway, I can only really speak for myself, but for me, it's like having properties, having assets, having passive income, been able to be financially free, been able to know that I can provide a home for my son even well after he wants to leave the nest. I can equip him with the knowledge of obtaining one, or I can rent one to him that I already have. So it's like, for me, it's got that lovely future. And it also works out to doubles down as like a retirement plan, where you know you've got something that you can probably ignore for most of your life, but then later on, where it's benefited so much in capital appreciation, you could probably have your house look after you in your later years, and also have a legacy to pass down to your children and your children's children, which for me personally wasn't something that I had experienced or I have experienced in my lifetime so far. So for me to create that kind of wealth was really, really important. So thank you so much for joining this call today. My name is JL Spooner. I do want to make sure that this is interactive. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my journey in the property industry and where I came from to where I am now. How do I come from zero? How did I come from being homeless at 16? Where did I come from? Living in council flats, living in hostels at a young age, to then becoming a property multimillionaire. I think once I've gone through my story, I really want to get to know you and what you want, what you're looking for, and just basically a Q&A for you to, ask any questions that you have, either being inspired from this call or previous questions that you've had before. So Jenny, is that okay?
That's okay. That's very perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that's okay. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So thank you so much for joining today, guys. My name is JL Spooner, and I became a property multimillionaire in under 3 years. So earlier life, JL, I decided when I was 16 years old that I couldn't be in my living environment with my mom and siblings anymore. And I made a decision to move out at a young age. In the UK, if you move out at 16, the government will see you as homeless, and they will give you a council flat. So they will give you your own flat. So at 16, and they'll give it to you when you're 18. So at 16, I declared myself as homeless, and I lived in hostels. Now, some of these hostels, I'm just going to put the mics on. If you could put the mics on anyone that maybe doesn't have their mics
Yeah,
on.
I want to put it on mute. So
Yeah, because I can't do it. I just realized I can't do it.
Yeah.
In case they're not aware of it. So if anyone hasn't got their mic on, please do turn it off, so that you can hear the sort of Zoom meeting. So that for me was, a very kind of a big decision to make at such a young age, and obviously had the most laid back mom and was like, yeah, sure, move out. I'll kick you out. But the thing is, I think the biggest learning from that is, even though my mom kicked me out with my consent, the fact that she agreed to it is a result of the fact that she knew she didn't have the financial literature, I think that's how you say it.
Literacy, financial literacy.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Literacy to actually teach me how to rent privately or teach me how to save up for a mortgage. She was in a council flat. So she's probably thinking, actually, you're 16, that's a good idea, because I don't know how else you're going to get your own flat, and I don't want you here for the rest of your life. So actually, that's pretty much a good thing. So even though I still had a loving mum, I also had a mum that was very limited in her belief system, and equally in her knowledge and understanding of the property industry. And so I was put into a very vulnerable situation. A lot of the people that were in the hostels were asylum seekers, people that had come from war-bound countries and had come from trauma and then situated themselves in the UK. I was also in hostels with young adolescents that had been homeless all their life and that had been abused mentally, physically, emotionally. So this is where this human, this innocent, little 16-year-old girl is taken out of like a warm family environment and put into an environment where other people had been going through a lot of traumatic things. And I had to figure it out whilst I was there. And there would be like little get-togethers in people's different rooms. And some of these kids would be like snorting ecstasy tablets and cocaine. And here's me, in this world with no rules, no boundaries, no disciplines, and actually could very easily have fallen into drugs, alcohol, theft, stealing. We didn't have enough money. I didn't have enough money to eat.
Yeah.
I would be happy when like the local cafe would leave like sandwiches in the concierge, and I would come home from college and I would hope that they left those sandwiches so that I could have dinner that night. And, statistically, this is a girl who knows nothing about wealth. In fact, is completely dyslexic. Never got any grades in English, maths, or science. Living in a hostel, has no kind of reason to be successful. And within that time, I actually came across the laws of attraction. When I was about 17, I came across the laws of attraction. And that was the first time that I learned that you can be and do and have anything you want as long as you believe. That was the first time that I realized that I had a really big imagination, and the gift that The Secret and the laws of attraction taught was that it's all about your imagination, that if you can see it in the mind, you can manifest it into your life. So I started to visualize my council flat, because I knew I was going to get a council flat in 6 months from this moment. So I started to manifest. Now, at this time, my interpretation of manifest was, I'm going to manifest a really expensive leather jacket, but then I'm going to go to the shop and I'm going to like walk out of the shop with it without a tag on.
Yeah.
Right? Because in my mind, I was like, oh, I've manifested. I didn't have any boundaries. I didn't have any discipline. So again, as much as the laws of attraction was a massive gift to me, when you don't have any boundaries in your life, when you don't have any morals, when you're surrounded by people that steal to eat, that steal to sell and eat and sell drugs and take drugs, you don't, if anything, you're uncool for not doing the things that those people are doing. If you're not drinking, if you're not just, some of my friends were escorts. Some of my friends, my goal, like one of my laws of attraction goal is I'm going to go and work in a strip club as a waitress. So that mindset in my generation already existed here. And I know it's so much more in this generation, and why God has really put, I feel, me in this position, and many of you in the position that you are in, to show people that you're worth far more than selling yourself for money. So how does this girl who knows laws of attraction actually, who's obsessed with being a good girl, turning bad, who is obsessed with being a rock star, who shaved the sides of her hair and had a mohawk, who has no religious practice, no father guiding her, no mother really navigating her through her teenagehood, how does this girl even get there? And it was actually my brother, who's on this call, a few years later, who gave his life to Christ and then brought me to the church, and I gave my life to Christ. And this was a huge thing for me, because for the first time, I learned that I'm virtuous, that I'm valuable, that I'm purified. And it really, really empowered me. I was also told and prophesied over that I'm not a beggar, which made me cry because I didn't even realize I thought I was. In the times where I gave my life to Christ, I had nothing. I would go home to my council flat and I would boil rice with seasoning. I did not have, at 21, 22, 20, 20, 20, 21, I did not have anything. And I remember going to church and they said someone has to tithe, and I didn't have anything, but I did have my favorite jumper. And I took that jumper off my back and I put it in the basket. I remember going to the shop and thinking, I've got no food. And seeing some cheese and a loaf of bread and thinking, I can just put that in my bag, but I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do that. Because God had a plan for me. And I didn't even know what it was. But I just knew I wanted to be who I knew I always was. I wanted to be an honorable person. I wanted to be a person of integrity. I wanted to undo the labels and the things the world had put on me. Years went by and I ended up being a waitress and working in the club industry in the West End. I had a really good time. Life was lifing and I was really, really on it when it came to work. I was always on point, doing the most, going above and beyond of what I could do. And so I went from being a waitress to a head waitress to a manager to a general manager. By the age of 23, I was a general manager of a club in West End, London. And by the time I got to 24, I opened my first business, which is called Dolly's Cafe, which was a cafe that I built that was attached to a club that I was managing. And they weren't using it for anything but storage. And I saw, well, your customers are going to leave very hungry, so I'll rent this out for you. I'll do it up, and at the end of the night, I'll serve food. So that was working really well, but I made my first mistake. And my first mistake was I didn't have a contract between me and the owner. And so he could see that I was making a lot of money, and they took my cafe and they fired me. And that was my biggest first lesson, that to make sure that you've got the right contracts and agreements in place. Years went on and I ended up opening a club in Nigeria, in Adetukumbo Adamola in Victoria Island. It was a success. It was hard. It was challenging.
That's interesting.
Yes, we are international in Victoria Island. It was the same year that Quillox opened, so that was very difficult competition, but we still walked away with a profit. And so I took that profit and brought it back to the UK because I felt that the UK market worked better for me. And I invested in a club that's called Power in the City that I opened in 2015, and I still have it to this day. This bar is an Afrobeat bar, and we turn over an annual turnover of $1 million a year. Now, the thing is, when we got to COVID, I suddenly realized that you can turn over £1 million a year in a business. But if you don't open that night, you don't get any money. And just because you're turning over $1 million a year doesn't mean you're getting $1 million a year. If you're turning over $1 million a year, but your expenses are 900,000, you're only making 100 grand after, and then you got to take tax out of that. So I very quickly realized when COVID happened, two things happened. So prior to COVID, I fell pregnant in 2018 and gave birth in 2019 in July. And then COVID happened. And what happened is, one, I realized I've got a baby. I can't go to work in the evenings on the weekends anymore, especially when he's at school. And secondly, well, you've closed my bar and I've got nothing to show for it. Yes, I bought my council flat, but I do not have anything to show for it. Hold on one second, guys. Just give me a second. I'm just turning off my heater. Sorry, it's getting really steamy in here. I'm like, I don't have anything to show for it. I don't have I've got, okay, I bought my council flat. Great. But I do not have, like, if I need to, my council flat is not giving me no passive income. So if you can close my bar like that, I've got no more income. I'm furloughed, and I've got no assets, nothing to depend on. What am I doing it all for? It just feels like I'm going nowhere fast. Feels like I built a business for nothing. Okay, I've just given myself a glorified job, but it's not passive and I'm not free. So what do I do? And that's when property came to me thick and fast. And in 2020, I spent £25,000 in my education. And I studied, and learned the property industry. In 2011, obviously lockdown had lifted and my bar was able to run again. So I asked my partner to run the business, and I decided to go to a different part of the UK to start to invest in the property industry. I had one of those kind of journeys where, you know, when you're full of fire, you're full of rage, passion, frustration, tired of being tired, just need to make this happen, not gonna take no for an answer, not gonna, like, I'm just gonna do it this, like, there's no other option. I made a very clear plan. I'm gonna become a property millionaire in a year. And I ended up becoming a property millionaire in 11 months. I used various strategies in the industry to get that done, which I'll talk to you a little bit about what those strategies are a little bit later. And maybe it's something that you could also adapt to your own living environment. Once I had become a property millionaire in 11 months, I then worked with some of the biggest property trainers in the UK and was training thousands of students every single month about the property industry. I mean, I was just going from strength to strength to strength. I mean, not only had I created absolute financial freedom for myself, I'd created a £27,000 a month passive income for myself every single month, but I'd also built a network of people that wanted to learn from me. I got to teach it. I got to learn twice. Everybody knows that if you teach, you learn twice. So there I am doing one-to-one mentorships with up to sometimes even 90 people in one day, just going over their personal deals to see if those deals stack up. So I'm learning, I'm gaining so much knowledge across the board on how to actually add value. And the beautiful thing was, everybody that I was mentoring was progressing and coming up to me and saying, "You've helped me. Thank you. Thank you that you cared enough to help." After a few years of doing training, I was simultaneously taking on more projects, one being an 18-bedroom product project that we call a HMO in this country, which is where you rent rooms out, but I'll explain it to you a bit later. That was making me £4,500 passive income a month. And then I was also packaging some of these amazing deals and selling them. And there was one week where I made £45,000 just packaging deals and selling those deals, which is called deal sourcing. I was taking on rent to rents. I was taking on lease options. I was doing deal sourcing. I was doing HMO and SA. And then I landed my biggest project to date. As much as I had done basement developments and, title splits, I'd never done a loft conversion, which is when you like add space to the roof, which I'll explain to you a bit later. This was like the ultimate deal. And so I landed myself a property for £1 million. I raised £500,000 from private investors. And I also raised £900,000 from lenders. And I bagged myself a property that I bought in central London for £1 million, and I developed it and is now on the market for sale for 1.7. That moment for me put me in the bracket of a property multi-millionaire. And, you know, within just shy of 3 years, I was able to get myself a, you know, over £4 million property portfolio just because I made a decision to change my life. And I did it all as a single mum who's fully dyslexic. So I say this testimony to say to anybody out there who, you know, feels like they, you know, for some strange reason, they don't feel like they can do those things. You can. It does not matter your gender. It does not matter the color of your skin. It does not matter how many kids you have. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you're married or whether you're single. In this country, to be honest, there's more perks for single people, right? So it does not matter where you are on your journey of life. When you decide to change your life, when you decide, you know what, I'm not gonna be average. When you decide, you know what, I'm gonna wake up early. I'm gonna do the discipline because you know what? It doesn't take that long. I was sick yesterday, really sick. Like I literally was out for the count. I'd slept for 8 hours. I took my son to school. I came home at 9 o'clock. I fell asleep until midday. I just put my phone on airplane mode. And as I was sleeping, I said, thank God. I said to myself, thank God that I don't have to ask no one.
I feel you.
I'm not making less money.
Yeah.
Th-
That's
You know,
financial security. No one is saying, hey, Joe, why are you not at work?
no one,
Yeah, I get
no
you.
one, no one. The most I have is my business partner, my brother,
Hmm.
he's like, hey, you good? And I'm like, no, I'm not good. All right, cool. I, it honestly, my my life has changed.
I mentor people, which I know is not.
My life has changed. And it only took a few years of just going hard.
Hmm.
What did it do? I don't look older. I don't feel older. What did it do? And I always say to people, if I can do it as a single mum, where I'm taking my son to viewings with me, I'm renting out houses with him there with me. Is it the choice I wanted? No. Of course, everyone wants to have a providing husband and be a stay-at-home mum. But that wasn't my portion. It just wasn't my portion. I ended up doing what I did, saving myself. And now guess what? I can pick my son up. I can drop him to school. If he's not, if he's
That's
got,
called a stay-at-home entrepreneur. I think that should be a word, a stay-at-home entrepreneur, where you can choose to
absolutely
work wherever you want from the comfort of your home or your bed, anywhere at all.
anywhere at all. You know, the other day my son he wasn't feeling 100. So I said, stay at home. I've got that option. I'm not losing money from staying at home. You know what I mean? So it's like if I could do it, anyone can do it. Absolute, like it's challenging. But you feel alive. You feel alive. Everything is now up to you. So, I'm gonna, if that's okay with you, Jenny, I'm gonna go over some of the strategies that I use in the property industry that help me become financially free and financially successful. These are also things that I train and teach as well. So is that okay? Would you like me
That's
to?
okay. That's perfect. Yes.
Yeah, and then after we could do a bit of a Q&A,
Yes.
and and ask me any questions
Yes.
that you might have in your life. So once I became a property multimillionaire, um, I actually fell asleep for about 2 months when I put the
Oh,
last brick in my last project. It was April of 2024 when I put the last brick down. I hadn't stopped for 3 years. And honestly, after that development, I probably like I was exhausted. I really was. And it was really lovely because it was this really gorgeous, luxurious. You can check me out on Instagram, JL Spooner. You can also have a look at JL.Spooner on YouTube, and you can see the house tour of the one that I finished in April. I do have blonde short hair, so it is still me. But for this particular property, I put Calcutta Viola marble in there. I had a French plaster in the bathroom. I had gold baths. I mean, I went there. I went there with this house. I made sure that it was a luxurious, hence why it's selling for 1.7.
Mm.
I really, really went there with this house. And I was exhausted. I was tired. Um, I just needed a break. I knew I wasn't going to buy another house that year because I'd bought so many over the last years. I was just like, I don't even want to do that right now. I bought so many houses for 3 years. I just need a break. So I fell asleep, but it feels like I fell asleep for 2 months.
Yeah.
I was just like lazing. I was like, the most I'm doing is taking my son to school and picking him up. And when I woke up, I wrote this book. I put all of my knowledge and my wisdom into this book. And I put together a training manual. And in this training manual has everything that I teach in the property industry. Every single bit of experience, just the truth and the reality of the property industry. I feel like a lot of people sell a pipe dream and they kind of sell this kind of like, oh yeah, just buy property and absolutely. No, you're going to have to work.
Exactly.
Right?
I'm sorry to cut Isha. I was telling someone this today. I'm like, equity is just one part of property where the value appreciates, right? But then that is only an unrealized profit. Unless you're able to convert that equity into cash, you're still it's just in paper.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah,
And
so it makes it sound easy, like, oh, just buy it to appreciate, you sell. It's not as real estate is not as liquid. You have to make it liquid and make it work for you. So that's really what I always try to tell people.
And I think that's such good advice. And actually, that brings me to what I would say. So if you've got a notepad right now and a pen, write these 3 keys to adding value down right now. Because these 3 keys are touching on exactly that. And if you know these 3 keys to adding value to property, then this is adaptable on any strategy that you do. This is adaptable in any country. This is something that will completely change your outlook on the property industry. So rule number 1, key 1 is buying a house in an area with good capital appreciation.
Mhm.
Not every area has good capital appreciation. Now, if you don't know what capital appreciation is, it's basically when the asset appreciates in value. So if you've bought something for £100,000 and you bought it in the right area, typically in the UK, that property doubles itself every 10 years. So if you bought something for £100,000, in 10 years, it's going to be worth £200,000. So that is your lowest way of investing in property. That's kind of like the mindset of like, I've got some capital, I just want to put it into something, and I just want to sit back for my retirement plan or, for a later date. It's your bare minimum. It's your vanilla investment. Okay. But it is crucial because if you don't buy in an area with good capital appreciation, then what's the point investing in property in the first place? We all want the house to appreciate, right? So that's rule number 1. Rule number 2, key 2, is cash flow. If you're not focused on cash flow, how are you going to pay the bills every month? I have so many people that invest in the property industry. I've got a client that's got £15 million worth of assets and is broke.
because it's not income generating assets. This is another part of the things I talk about.
100%. And you're spot on, Jenny.
I say this because my dad was very huge on I'm only going to invest in the things I see. So he was a huge property investor. So we have lots of properties. Like I can count 10, 20, 30. But at the end of the month, you're looking for a property to sell because you have like an unplanned expense and there's literally nothing generating income. And that was the very first time I knew that real estate is not a liquid investment.
No, it's an investment. If you want financial freedom, I mean, how much does it really cost to have financial freedom? For me, it's only about $4,000 a month. That's only how much my lifestyle costs, right? So if I can generate that through my assets, now I've got an asset with good capital appreciation, but I've also got some good passive income. Now you're thinking, well, JL, how? How do you make a property a cash flowing asset? And that brings me to 3 strategies in the property industry that will support you in increasing the cash flow. Let's say, for example, we've got a 4-bedroom house, and this 4-bedroom house also has 2 living rooms, 2 reception rooms, right? In this country, in the UK, we can get a property licensed to be a HMO, which is a house of multiple occupation. Now, if this house is giving you £1,500 a month rented out as a 4-bedroom house, that's okay. But if you do it as a HMO and convert those 4 rooms into separate bedrooms and the 2 rooms downstairs into actual bedrooms as well, you've now got a 6-bedroom HMO. Now, in this country, the average rate for a room is £500. In London, it's £1,000. So now you can rent each room out, bringing in £3,000 per month instead of 1,500. That is a fantastic way of increasing your cash flow and also maybe beating the unreasonable increase in interest rates, warranting you not to lose your home, thus making it what we call a superhero HMO. And this is what I've done. Most of my properties are HMOs, 6-bedroom HMOs, 9-bedroom HMOs, 10-bedroom HMOs, 18-bedroom HMOs. And each asset is giving me on average £3,000. One giving me 4,500, the rest giving me around 2,500 each. In passive monthly income. So I benefit from capital appreciation because one of the houses I bought for £250,000 and it's now worth 550. I bought it in 2021. It's 2025. How has it gone up so much? So I'm benefiting from capital appreciation, and I'm financially free and laying down when I got cramps or I'm not feeling good. How amazing is that? Now the second way to add cash flow is service accommodation, Airbnb. Renting out that same 4-bedroom house, if it's in the right location, the right area, on a nightly rate of £100 or more. Now you're making that same £3,000 a month. You've now increased the cash flow. Or maybe you've taken that 3-bedroom flat and maybe it's that 4-bedroom house and maybe it's on 3 levels. And maybe you've decided to do a title split and make them into separate flats. Maybe the ground floor is a 3-bedroom, the first floor is a 2-bedroom, and the third floor is a 1-bedroom. And now you're title splitting it and you're renting it out. You're renting out the 3-bedroom for 1,500, the 2-bedroom for 1,000, and the 1-bedroom for 750. right? So this is all adaptable across the world. I've got investments in different areas. I've got investments in Brazil that I use for Airbnb. Works perfectly fine. I've got houses in Nigeria in Lekki phase 1 that I've made into flats that I rent out on. So I rent out just for someone to live there. I did title splits. So this is adaptable, right? So they're the 3 ways that you can add cash flow. Now, the third way of adding value to an asset is making sure that your asset has good it's conversion, is modification, and that is buying something that needs a refurb, or maybe adding square foot to the property. Maybe you've added another floor, maybe you've added a side extension. So now you've taken a house from £1 million to 1.7 because you've added 440 square foot onto the existing building, and the price per square foot has increased because you've renovated the property. Right? So they're your 3 ways of adding value to property. Rule number 1 is buying it with good capital appreciation. Rule number 2 is increasing your cash flow. Rule number 3 is conversion. The 3 C's. Modification.
Yeah.
And if you can understand that, you understand the property industry. And you don't have to get all 3. Like for the one that I bought in central London, of course, it's not all free because cash flow is not going to play a big part of that because it's not as important in London. You're not really going to, the mortgage is so high, you're not really going to get strong cash flow. But what you are going to get is great capital appreciation. And you're going to get great, and you're going to increase the value. You're going to add equity to the house because you're going to modify it, and your price per square foot is so high. But if you buy in a cheaper area, you're absolutely going to get cash flow. So it kind of works out like that. So just knowing where you're buying, why you're buying, what your intentions are, and then you can master the industry. So now, I want to, before we go to our Q&A, I just wanted to reestablish the strategies that are available in the property industry. So we've already spoken about the fact that we've got HMO in this country, which is a house of multiple occupations. So it's a house with multiple occupations and multiple tenancy agreements. HMO. So taking a 4-bedroom house with 2 reception rooms, making it into a 6-bedroom, for example, renting it out room by room instead of as a whole house, benefiting from a higher cash flow and asset. Then we got an SA, which is a service accommodation, which is when you take a property and essentially you're making it into a hotel. Short-term lets, short-term stays, high cash flow and assets, again, but very high ask, right? Because you've got to get somebody in every single other day, right? So the ask has to be quite high. You've got to get it in the right location. We then have a strategy called rent to rent. Rent to rent is a phenomenal strategy because it's where you're like, I do not have, let's say someone's like, I do not have any money and I do not have £25,000 to buy a house or £50,000 to buy a house or whatever it is that they don't have, right? Let's say they just have like 4 or 5 grand, okay, to start off with. The rent to rent strategy is phenomenal because essentially you are telling a tired landlord, you're saying to them, listen, I want to rent your house off of you for £1,500 a month. I'm going to guarantee you rent for 5 years and I'm going to take it on. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change it into a HMO or a service accommodation. And I'm going to rent it out for a higher price. So now you're paying him 1,500, but you've increased the rentability by 1,500. So you spent 5 grand, but you're making £1,500 a month for 5 years without owning a house. That's where I got my 18-bedroom HMO from. That gives me 4.5 grand a month. I don't own that house. I'm just renting it, managing it, quote unquote, and taking all the froth off the top. So again, you've got to go through those rules of adding value. What are you trying to do here? For that deal, I knew I wasn't looking for capital appreciation. I wasn't looking to modify it or to convert it. I was just purely looking for additional cash flow. And maybe I was looking for cash flow because I wanted to buy a house. Because I knew if I could save £4,000 a month for 12 months, I would have £48,000 and I could buy a house or two with that. Meaning that with that one rent to rent, I could buy a house every year up until the 5 years is through. And that house that I'm buying every year could be replacing the rent to rent. Hello?
Yeah.
Hello? Right? So, and then what we have after that, after the rent to rent strategy, is we have the lease option strategy. Lease option is when you buy a house for today's price, but you pay for it in 7 years. Yes, Ruth, receive it. That's for you, right?
Yeah.
So we've got we've also got the lease option. This is going to blow your mind. This is going to blow your mind. The lease option strategy is when you tell a landlord that's mainly struggling, listen, I'm going to buy your house. Let's say they're selling their house for 200K. I'm going to buy your house for 200K. But I'm going to pay for it in 7 years. I'm going to secure it today for 200K, but I'm going to pay for it in 7 years' time. Now we're thinking about capital appreciation, right? Because, and guys, I've got like 4 of these. I got 3 of these in 1 year. A 10-bedroom, a 10-bedroom, and a 6-bedroom. In 1 year, I got 3 of these. Landlords that were tired, that didn't want to have to deal with their house anymore, that had it vacant for a long time, didn't want to deal with it anymore. And I was like, hey, I'll buy this house off of you in 7 years' time. Now, what the benefit from them is they get guaranteed rent from me. Again, they get that 1,500 from me. They get consistency. They get to buy down their mortgage, pay down their mortgage. They get a guaranteed sell at the end. But for me, that house has gone from 200,000 and on its 7th year, it'll be worth 340 because it would have gone up 70% because it typically doubles itself every 10 years. So now I'm buying a house for 200K that's worth 340. That's a no money down deal. And I've also benefited because it's a 10-bedroom HMO, giving me a profit of 2,500 per month. Meaning that every single year, I'm making £30,000 from this house. Over 7 years, I made, what, 250,000 pounds from this house. Plus, I get it below market value. Right? Very, very powerful strategy. And then we go into a strategy called deal sourcing, which if you're broke as a joke and you don't have anything in your pocket, deal sourcing is amazing because with deal sourcing, you can package all of these deals that we're talking about and you can sell them to investors. I've got my own mentees that I mentor who've made 21 grand in 21 grand in 4 months, just packaging and selling deals. I've got mentees that have raised £25,000 and have bought a house and they're 23 years old and they're buying HMOs. I've got a 23-year-old that just bought a house for 58K that gives her a passive passive income of £1,600. And she only had to put, 25% of 58,000 is 14 grand. She gets all her money back in less than a year. Her return on investment is like 100%. I've got students that have bagged 25-bedroom HMOs on a rent-to-rent, giving them £4,500 a month that didn't have to put any money into it. That didn't have to put a dime. Check out my Instagram. I'll be posting them over the weekend and next week. It's JL Spooner. Have a look at it. I will be posting some of them
already on my story, so I'm sure they'll find you.
I will retag you, right? I'll repost you. And if you are interested in any training and you want a bit of a one-to-one mentor session, repost me at me on your story. I'll repost you, and I'll, if you've got, give me your feedback. Tell me what you felt about this, and whoever's got great feedback, I'm happy to assess your personal situation and give you some 20, 30-minute free one-to-one session where I can give you some feedback and help you on your journey. I don't need anything from you. I'm happy to help, but you got to show up for yourself. So tag me, at me on your Insta story so I can repost you. And I'm happy to have that one. I will select, the best feedback. How hungry are you? Let's go. Right. So we've got the service accommodation, sorry, not service accommodation. We've got the lease option agreement and then packaging deals and selling them. So you don't even have to have money. You could just, the property industry has got low barriers of entry. And then you have the BRR strategy, which is buying a house, refurbishing it, and refinancing it. And we teach that. We're very much our company is called the wealthcreators.co.uk. And we're all, yeah, can I share? Yeah, no problem at all. Mishak, if you could share my Instagram, my social media handles onto the group.
Let me share. Let me just type.
If you can hear me.
I'll just type it in the chat. So
no, don't worry, he's already sent it. My brother's amazing.
Okay.
Shout out to my brother, who's amazing. Part of the Wealth Creators community. But yeah, this stuff is life-changing. And I'm not saying that you need to quit your job and like be a property entrepreneur like I have, but it can absolutely support and help you. Maybe you love what you do. Maybe you love working as a teacher or a nurse or a doctor. But maybe you don't want to feel enslaved to your work anymore. You actually want to do it because you love it, not because you have to, which is a huge, huge difference. Thank you, Mishak. So just check it out. So the BRR strategy is about buying a house, refurbing it, and refinancing it, adding that third key, that value to your assets. So listen, guys, I don't want to be the only one talking. I want to hear more about you. Give me your feedback. Let me know, where you're at, and let me give you some feedback on your own personal journey.
Thank you so much, Jill. So very soon we're gonna do like the question and answer session. But basically for us, because it's an investment community and investment group, and if there's one thing I noticed that's very predominant when it comes to the Pakistanis and the Indians is their leveraging shared community and resources, to build wealth in England, if I do say so myself. And I have a little bit of experience in the real estate investing back home, the Airbnbs and all. But the point is how we can literally start in the UK. Let's say, for example, the HMO strategies. So, like you said, everybody might not have the initial investment capital. So I was looking more of something we could do as an investment group. I mean, those that want to do individually can start as well. But like if we want to start like investing today, as a group per se or as an individual into like the HMOs or the rent to rent, what are the steps to think, like what are the important things we need to consider? What are the steps we need to take, to facilitate that basically?
Mm-hmm. So you mean as a group or individually?
As a group.
As a group,
that would apply individually as well. I mean, as a group,
yeah,
we're gonna have more capital at our disposal. Of course,
yeah,
there's gonna be a lot of documents, contracts, lawyers, and all that.
yeah, absolutely. So there has to be an agreement put together, and then there has to be an agreement that's put together, and then a limited company that's incorporated in the country. So once there's been a company that's been incorporated, that company can buy the asset.
Mm-hmm.
And then, depending on what the strategy is, the company could buy the asset and develop it, or it can buy and refinance it, or it could buy the asset, develop it and sell it, or it could buy the asset and produce cash flow. So again, it's about what all of the investors are looking for, what type of returns they are looking for on their investment. So typically, I would say a respectable amount to receive is somewhere between 6 and 10% return on their investment.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously that differs if they invest in themselves, that changes. But it's more about what you've discussed and what you think is the best thing, or what your actual intentions are as a group.
What about if it's individually, like per person?
I think individually we can see a relatively high return, in sense of, if you're buying something in your person, and for example you are required to have a deal sourcer, so somebody to find you the deals in the UK, find you the deals. I would ask you, the question, wouldn't I? I would say, okay, well, first and foremost,
Yeah.
are you looking to buy and hold? Are you looking to buy and have some cash flow? Or are you looking to do a modification? Now, if you are not in the country, typically you're not going to want to do a whole big refurb because you're not there.
Yeah.
Do something as simple as possible. So you could do that, but ideally you'd want to probably do buy and hold or buy an increase in cash flow, and have that same person who supplied you the property manage it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you would probably want to opt into something where you've got cash flow and good capital appreciation. So, for example, in this country, you can buy something and you could put somewhere between 25,000 and 35,000 down. And you can get a passive income, let's just say conservatively, of £1,000 a month. That means within 2 years, you've got all your money back. Now, that is a 50% return on investment, which is amazing. Whereas doing a kind of a group investment, there is no contribution. You'd be a sort of shadow investor essentially, but you would get 10% return on your investment. So if you put 10,000, you would get 10% of that, right? If you put 50,000, you'll get 10% of that. So just giving you a good idea of what that looks like. So from a perspective, if you put £50,000 in a group investment, you get 10%. No, nothing, you don't do anything. You could chill out, and then you get a return on investment of 10% of what you put in. You put 50 grand in, you get 55 grand back. If you buy a house and you use 50 grand, you get 50 grand in that asset until you sell it, but you get £1,000 a month in passive income, or 1,500 in passive income every single month.
So that's dividend and capital appreciation, two ways of earning income.
Well, you can sit on it for a long time. It doesn't really matter. You can sit on it, we have a lot of Asian investors that they don't really care that much because they know they're buying for capital appreciation.
Yeah.
So, they will buy a house in Canary Wharf, for example, for £900,000. They know it's going to be worth 1.8 in 10 years. So they're not really worried about cash flow. So it's just all about intentions and those three rules constantly, and thinking about where you are in the planet and how much involvement you're going to have. So for example, if you just want a return, then you're probably going to be investing in a project that is going to be modified, right? But if you're doing a sole investment, you're probably going to be invested in something that is just going to be cash flowing and has good capital appreciation.
Yeah. Okay. Guys, please drop your questions in the chat box, or you can just like ask or mute yourself and ask a question. But actually, Jill, so the rent to rent is actually quite interesting. I read an article a couple of weeks ago about this guy in London. Pretty amazing story. He has an apartment and then he goes ahead to buy tents, like, the camping tents. And then he put them in his parlor, like there are about 5 to 6 tents in the living room. And people that come to vacation in London actually pay. Like I heard he makes about what, 5 grand or so a month. People pay to sleep in those tents, use the shared toilet and bathroom and kitchen, and go about their touristy day. Like I'm very happy to do that. And I think that literally made me wonder, like, what the hell am I doing? you know, like because he rented that apartment. It was not his property. He just had the apartment. He had to move out of London for work, and then he put like tents. So people's story said, oh, that it made them meet new friends, new connections. They felt like they were not alone traveling, and it is really interesting. Like when I saw that, I was like, okay, this is something that is actually really feasible, the rent to rent. But the point is, how do you go about convincing a landlord, for example, let's say you want to do a rent to rent, to actually say, okay, I want to rent, from you, basically. And do you think that as immigrants, like as people that are literally living in the UK, how possible do you think that is? Like, do you think there's going to be any obstacles or anything that's going to pose a challenge to us?
I mean, absolutely. First of all, that's called glamping, and it's very, very big here in the UK.
Oh, there's a name
We
for
have a
it.
lot. Yeah, yeah, we have a lot of. It's a very typical English thing to do is to go camping or glamping. You'd be surprised. You'd probably think, why would you in this cold weather go and sleep in a tent? But actually, we do it quite often, so that's quite funny. I think with the rent to rent strategy, there are different methods and different ways to communicate with landlords, estate agents. There are methods of finding them that, I definitely do teach and go over in great detail. Yes, you are going to face some challenges, and it's like, you know you got to see your life like the pursuit of happiness.
Mhm.
Yeah, how hungry are you? I would say my journey was, I would say, not far from the pursuit of happiness, in that level of like hunger. And I mean, I wouldn't say it was as, dramatic as that, of like sleeping in a toilet with my child, and not peeing to, make sure that you make all your calls. I mean, I wasn't that extreme, didn't need to be that extreme, wasn't in that situation, but that level of obsession
Mhm.
is always required in any industry that you want to succeed in. And it's that will overcome all of the obstacles that will be in your way. I don't think there's any issue with where you come from. London is one of the most, you know, I listen to you, I speak to you, you could be literally in London. I couldn't, there's no difference in anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you can call whomever you want, you're still going to be valued and appreciated. You know what I mean? So there's nothing about you that's going to be difficult for you to obtain an asset.
Okay, that's interesting. Thank you so much. So we have questions coming in the chat box. The first one says, oh, there's a lot of questions. I'm mixing it up. Let me just go through. The first one says, are HMOs allowed everywhere? I have heard people are lobbying to revoke the licenses of HMOs.
So there are some areas that are called Article 4, where the local council have decided that there's too many in the area. And so they put this Article 4 direct in the local area, which means that in order to get a HMO, you need to get planning permission, meaning you need to put in an application, which could be approved or denied. But there are still a lot of areas in the UK that are in non-Article 4 areas. So eventually it's going to be a rarity. Fortunately, they've caught wind that we're all benefiting majorly from
Yeah, I
this
know.
strategy, and they're slowly so if you are interested in investing, now is the best time for you to do that.
Yeah, right. Thank you. Okay, the next question. What areas are considered as high valued for capital appreciation for properties?
I would say any city centre is all about the population. So the more people there are, the better it's going to be. You think about London, of course, it's going to be the highest in capital appreciation. There's so many people here, and the closer you get to central, the more it's going to be valued at. So you really are looking for city centres. I have been across the whole country and I have found that areas that are closer to the city centre tend to go up a lot more.
Yeah.
And that could be any city in the UK. But yeah, you go to Cardiff, if you go to Liverpool, if you go to Manchester, if you go to Leeds, anywhere in that city centre is going to be much more of value.
Okay, thank you. The next question says, as a sole investor, sorry, as a first-time buyer, would you be expected to put down more money as a down payment when buying to rent out rather than a buy to live in? Like, is there any difference?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
buying a personal mortgage would be bought in your personal name, and that typically would be a 10% upfront cost. If it's a buy to let, and ideally bought in a limited company,
Mm-hmm.
then it would be a 25% upfront cost.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Okay. Next question says, as a sole investor, how much do you need to start with as a minimum? Okay, we've already answered the first part. Also, for capital appreciation, will you require a mortgage for this, which shows lenders asking for 40% at the least?
I don't understand that question.
Yeah, right. Me too. He said, as a sole investor, how much do you need to start with as a minimum? That's one part of the question.
Okay, so
Then,
let's answer that first. So if you're doing a purchase in a house, I said, one of my students has purchased a house for 58 grand. She has to put 25% in, which is £14,000,
oh,
which gives her
in
a
what
pass.
area was that? I think
That was
8,000
up
was quite
north.
cheap. Where?
That was up north.
Oh yeah, I know the houses in the north are quite like
Yeah.
affordable.
And that gives her 1,600 a month in passive income for the rest of her life. She's like 23 years old.
That's
Um,
interesting.
Yeah, so barrier of entry is low depending on where you buy. Obviously, in London, your deposit's like 250,000, So
I
it's
know.
very different. Um, and if you're doing a rent to rent, again, it might be a few grand, which is again very different.
Okay. Then the next question says, I still don't get it, but it says also for capital appreciation, you will require a mortgage for this, which shows lenders asking for at least 40%.
Well, for capital appreciation, that's really not really the lenders. I mean, it is their concern, but they're not really going to ask you about that. They're more going to ask, can it rent out? Can it make
Yeah,
enough
enough
money to
money.
pay the mortgage? So, and usually on a buy-to-let mortgage, it's 25% that you have to put up front, not including stamp duty and legals,
Right.
which is
So it's
probably
that's why I'm like real estate is like physical real estate is a hassle. I'm sorry. I mean, it's a money making machine if you master it. I mean, the commercial aspect. But every other thing is quite like you have to pay for taxis, you have to pay for legals, you have to pay for inspection fee, and now deal sourcing as well. So that's why I think you really need a proper guidance so you don't get it wrong. You don't want to waste all that money and then you have nothing to show for it. That's gonna
absolutely.
be so sad. Next question. Do you have to register a company before buying a buy to rent? That's a good question.
Well, if in this country, if you want to get around, obviously I'm not a tax advisor, but if you want to get around not paying tax on the full amount, then you'd want to get it on a limited company because you can offset the expenses against the income, meaning that you pay less tax.
Well, talking to that based on my financial advisor, what I learned as a financial advisor in the UK, I think that even as an individual, you can do that. Especially if it's for business purposes. I think if you have multiple properties, okay, buy to rent, not buy to, yeah, buy to rent, you don't have to actually. Um, you can. So there's also this part where I heard that if you have a property, you can choose to let it out as well. If you live in and you do not get to pay any taxes, you can write it off as a self-employed
Yeah,
income.
you
I
can.
heard something like that, but I haven't really explored to see how true that is. I mean, that would now make sense if someone chooses to buy to live and just, like rent maybe the basement or a spare room downstairs as a source of extra income.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Do we have any more questions? I have a limited company already in the food industry. Can I add property to it, or should I open a new limited company for property? Also, I bought my personal house through Help to Buy. Please, how can I get private investors to invest in my property business? Okay.
Okay. I would say you definitely want to buy in a new limited company, because buying in a new limited company means that you don't have any financial, when you think about you buying a house, you don't really want to be tied to other liabilities. You want
Yeah,
that, we teach this. So in the Wealth Creators, sorry, my son's got to be picked up from school. Just give me 1 second.
that's okay.
1 second.
What questions do we have? Let's see. Okay. Hmm.
Hi guys, I do apologize. I'm gonna have to wrap this up quite soon. My son finishes
Yeah,
at 5:30, and
we are
he needs a
almost
sandwich.
done.
Goes to
So
football. Yeah.
thank you
So
so much for your time. So
so
yeah,
just to answer that, no worries, just to answer that question. So we do give a lot of company knowledge because it's used a lot in the property industry, as a way to kind of um maximize on your profits, but also you need to know how many companies you need to use for each asset,
Hmm.
and then where your cash flow is going to go and your utilities and stuff like that. You just want to protect your asset as much as possible, the least financial flow and financial liability that the company has, the better, right? You don't want it to be making any money. You don't want it to be losing any money. You want it to be pretty much, just doing the least because it owns a house. So you don't want to get into financial issues on your
Hmm.
limited company. And in terms of what was the next question of that there was two questions.
Says she bought her personal house through Help to Buy. How can she get private investors to invest in her property business?
Yeah, the Help to Buy scheme is amazing. But listen, when it comes to actually, no, I don't, sorry, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't actually like the Help to Buy scheme, to be honest. No, I don't like the Help to Buy schemes. I'm not a fan of those. Is it where you go 50-50 with the developer on the property? I
Yeah,
don't
I
really
No,
like
think
that's
that.
good.
so.
Yeah, I don't feel like you have any right to anything. I don't like those at all. Um, sorry, but I've just got to be honest, right?
Mm.
Um, but, look, put yourself out there. There might be people on this call that want to invest with you.
Well, I told her to send a DM, right? Okay, final question about the rent to rent. What contracts should we seek out to bind us, like to bind the landlord and the renter, so the landlords cannot go back, renege on the agreement and say, no, we didn't agree about that. Yeah. So
And
that's
we
the final
provide
question.
all of the contracts and agreements. So we have all the management agreements, all the ASTs, all the lease agreements, you definitely want to make sure that they're airtight. And that but most of the time landlords they pretty much don't want you to not pay them every month. They're like,
Yeah, they just want their
I'm good
cash
with you
flow.
being there, but just
Mm.
get a good. I mean, we do have all the contracts and we offer them all out to all of our wealth creators, our mentees. But like I said, lease agreements, ASTs, management agreements are what you're looking for.
Okay. I think there are some other questions with concerning your services, but I'm going to redirect them to your DMs. Let me just reply that. Okay, thank you
I
so
think I've
much,
probably got time for like
Jill.
one more.
Oh, she can take one more service. Okay, so the question basically is how much are your services? So like from deal sourcing to I think planning and investing. That's basically the question here. I can see here. So although I'm trying to send
What
it to your page.
What I will do now is I will quickly go through my services. It will be quite quick because I don't have much time.
Mhm.
Um, but I do want to show you my services so that you kind of walk away and feel like you understand what I do. And
Okay.
then if you want to reach out or even want to send your email or contact details in this group, my brother will be happy to take your information and then we can call you tomorrow and get you scheduled in, or even if you just want a one-to-one Zoom meeting. So we do, yeah, I don't, sorry, Michelle, what are you saying? This message is private, invite them. Okay. So we have, oops. Okay, great. So we have a webinar that's taking place on Sunday. And that webinar it might be a better idea actually, because on that webinar, I will show my products and services. Misha, what's your thinking there? Because I don't have much time. What's
Hello,
your
everyone.
thinking?
A pleasure to be on. My apologies for a real quick introduction. In answer to your question, Jay, I think definitely ladies or everyone that's on the call attending the webinar on Sunday at 9 p.m. GMT would be amazing because it's 90 minutes worth of Jay walking you through her blueprint for achieving a 7-figure property portfolio. And within that presentation, she's also going to be sharing about the Wealth Creators Academy and what our
Yeah.
offerings consist of. And that will be a lot more detailed and you'll have the opportunity to really absorb what's being said.
Yes, definitely. And thank you, Misha. If you just send that link to the group, and it just gives
Or
us
you can just send it to me via IG or email and I'll just put it on the group. And
okay, perfect. So yeah, Misha, just send it to me on IG and then I'll forward it now. So yeah. It might be better for us to just take our time to go through the products and services other than me kind of rushing through
yeah,
it
true.
now. So that's absolutely fine.
Thank
Actually, I've
you
got
so much, Jill. This was really insightful. I mean, I just knew about HMOs and Airbnbs. I didn't know about like the other part of, real estate investing we could do to earn money. So this has been really insightful, and we will definitely be getting back to you.
okay, amazing. Well, I'm glad that you've enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.
And yeah, I look forward to seeing you guys soon. God bless all of you. Listen, if you can see it in the mind, you can hold it in the hand.
True.
Everything is possible as long as you believe. And I'm telling
True.
you, it truly, truly, truly is. Like, I'm making more money than I've ever made before, and it's never been so easy to make it.
That is
Money
so
comes to me
true.
frequently and abundantly.
There's
Money
something I
loves
say,
me.
money meets money in my hands.
Money's a feminine energy.
It is. I agree.
Money's a feminine energy. She wants to be wanted. She wants to be wanted. She wants to be accepted. She wants to be embraced. She wants to be wanted. And if you don't want her, she's going to walk away. She's a feminine energy and she requires a masculine energy to obtain her. Somebody that's going to be open enough to say, I'll take action for you.
Yeah.
I will welcome you into my space. She wants to be friends. And the thing is, she's humble. She doesn't want you to need her all the time. That's not what money wants. Money wants to serve you. She's a feminine energy. She just wants you to put her to work so she can serve you. She is at service to you. Once you start to really understand that, you'll be able to manifest £1 million in a day.
There's something I always say. I say money is very fluid, right? And if it will go, it will go, right? But the point is you have to tell it where to go. You have to give it directions. Otherwise, it's gonna disappear. And that is the honest truth. If you want your money to buy you a house, it's gonna buy you a house. If you want your money to buy you a car, it's gonna buy you a car. If you want your money to help you become useless by always going to the club, spending on frivolities, that is exactly what it is going to do for you.
Exactly that.
So you have to literally choose how you want your money to be spent and how you need to use your money to elevate your life. and
Yes.
basically, thank you for the words of inspiration. I think a mindset shift is another important part of building wealth, and I'm so glad that we're able to also touch a little bit on that as well. Thank you so much, Jill. This was really amazing, insightful, and
No
interactive.
worries. Jenny, thank you so much for having me. And before we leave, I want to leave you on this. The 3 keys to success is number 1, educate yourself. Regardless of what you do, get the books, listen to the webinars, listen to the podcast, just like what you're doing right now. This is how you build wealth. Being in the environment of the people that you want to be like.
Exactly. Pay for proximity. That's the word.
Educate yourself. Take massive action and visualization. See it in your mind's eye. If you can get those 3 keys, nothing is going to hold you back. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for your
Thank you
time.
so much. Have a good day. Have a good
No
day.
worries. Enjoy your day.
Bye. We will.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Hi, everybody. Okay, guys. Well, we're done with the class. We can reconvene in the group chat. I'm ending the call now. Bye, everyone. Thank you for joining.